Are you ready to become a leader and change maker by getting your PhD? Ready to stop stressing and actually take action so you create offer letters instead of rejections? Then this is the spot for you. I'm Dr. Natalie Morse, and I'm here to help you get into your dream PhD with full funding. Let's go. Welcome to the podcast. I am Dr. Natalie Morse, and we're going to be talking all about common myths and conflicting advice that you are getting and how to handle it. And I actually polled our current clients in our Slack community. We have a private Slack group so people can always ask questions. And trust me, there are a lot of crazy questions that come up. And I said, hey, I'm seeing this a lot with you guys, conflicting advice that you're getting. And I want to know what's really on your mind. And then we can talk through it and solve it so that way you can move forward and not have to worry about that anymore. So I literally polled these people, and I'm going to talk exactly about their questions and the conflicting advice they're getting, so that way you can move forward with confidence in your PhD process and be more successful. Because nothing is more frustrating than having conflicting advice, wasting your time and energy, and trying to figure it out, right? So let's get to it. Oh, and also I'll probably be sharing my screen throughout because I'm going to be talking about some different things, different programs and such. So if you do want to see this, I think the video version is also available here or on YouTube or wherever you're looking. But if you're listening, I'll do my best to describe everything that we're talking about. It'll make sense. Okay, so number one, this is the first thing that I saw come up, and that's conflicting. Somebody said, I'm getting conflicting advice about networking. Some people are telling me to do it. Some people are telling me it's worthless or even a little bit annoying. And she's saying, as she's talking to other professors and other people, that's the advice she's getting. And right, like, we want to value their opinion because they are literally the people that we're trying to talk to. So it makes sense to ask them their opinion. And if you ask 100 people, you're probably going to get 100 different opinions. What I will say is that we've worked with hundreds of people and we have seen networking be so effective and so important in people, A, getting offers, or B, getting offers where they actually thrive and are successful and enjoy their time. So I would never skip this step personally. And even looking at the potential downside, if somebody thinks it's a little bit annoying, the potential downside, if you email a faculty and they're annoyed and they hit delete, is so small compared to the potential upside for a faculty opening that email, saying, oh, this person looks interesting. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk with them. And you getting an offer to a really great program, the upside is so much bigger. I really would never skip this step. That's my thought. And that's why I think that this is conflicting advice. I want you to use your time valuably and use it to the highest level of your ability. And this is a big piece of that puzzle. So spending time networking is not a bad thing, right? The downside of somebody deleting your email, it's not like they're going to go to the other committee and say, this person emailed me, they're never allowed in the program. That's not going to happen. As long as you're respectful, obviously, you're not going to be a jerk in the email. There really is almost no downside, right? The downside is they hit delete. But the upside of you getting into a really great program and really loving it and creating this life that you want for yourself is so much bigger. So that's my hot take on this conflicting advice, is I would almost always network when you can. The next conflicting question that came up was like, how much experience I need to be successful getting into a PhD program if it's not exactly my background. So this person, I believe, has multiple masters in slightly different fields, all in the STEM field, but they're moving in a slightly different direction. I think they had maybe more in, I could be messing this up, maybe more in applied math, and maybe they're going more into the life sciences side or vice versa. I can't remember. And some of the conflicting advice they're getting from professors and things in their world is that, oh, you don't have enough experience in that exact space that you're trying to get into. You might need another master's or go do something more. And I can understand that. The more aligned your background is with the PhD program that you're trying to get into, the better. That is true. It shows them that you are very capable because you have done this similar work before. So it is a huge piece of the puzzle. I don't want to say, whatever your qualifications are, you can just apply to whatever program, and if you smile enough, they'll let you in, because that is not true. However, especially with somebody that already has a master's in a very similar field, this isn't someone going from math into sociology, right? Or vice versa, right? These are very similar fields. and they have different backgrounds in that space. You probably have enough skills. You probably have enough to be successful. And the other thing that really needs to always come up is that you don't need a PhD to get a PhD. So in an ideal world, you would have done similar projects in undergrad or your master's or working in research or different teams, and then you would be able to build on those in your PhD. But you are always going to be developing new skills and expanding. Otherwise, what would be the point of doing your PhD? So I guess to bring it back to this of like, how much is enough? That is a question as old as time that we see in our clients all the time, right? This comparing themselves to other people, and I don't have 5 publications, or I don't have blah, blah, blah. So the answer is, right, it's a little bit subjective, of course, but if you're going in a very close related field, I don't feel like you need another master's to make that happen. If you are unsuccessful, if you've tried a few rounds, go for it. But I would not overcommit right off the bat. I would not say, yep, I'm going to spend the next 2 years and maybe another 80 grand getting a master's if I don't need to. So I would really focus on highlighting your strengths that you do have that are very transferable. This person has done research in very similar fields. And so I would highlight those skills that you're going to bring that are very ubiquitous and necessary in any research environment, right? Your ability to pose questions, to develop projects, to do data analysis, to analyze things, to create results, to write, to present, all of those skills. And you use them in many domains. And so really highlighting those is probably more important than getting another master's. I will say, if you're able to do a slight pivot, there are some classes you can take as a non-degree seeking student. So say if you're going from math more into the bio side and you haven't taken chemistry or something that you want to add because you've got 10 math classes you've taken, but you haven't taken more of the bio side, right? Take a chemistry class. You don't need a whole nother master's, right? Or if you're doing research with a team and you're the math person on that group, but they're doing more of the chemistry side, ask to get more involved in that, get more skills in that, right? You can gain hands-on experience without necessarily needing a whole nother master. So I think this conflicting advice of you have to have 10 projects and 3 publications in that exact space before you apply to that exact department, I think it's a little bit false. Again, I want you to have good experience. I don't want you to just be like, I did something SOAR related 10 years ago, that counts. Like, obviously, I want you to have more experience, the better. But I think because of the nature of this work, how it gets very specific depending on the group that you're applying to or the department you're applying to, that particular person, what they're doing, it is highly unlikely you have done exactly that thing before. And that's okay, because you should get there and learn a little bit. Again, I don't want you to get there and spin your wheels for 2 years trying to figure it out, but if you have to learn a slightly new skill or new coding language or whatnot, you can do that. You are absolutely capable of doing that. And I want you to focus more on the really strong skills you do have and really sell those instead of focusing on the tiny little gap that might exist. Okay, the third conflicting advice question that I got from our clients was about interdisciplinary programs. So I'll quote them. They said, hey, I've been cautioned against using the phrase interdisciplinary because it suggests a misunderstanding of the publication world. But meanwhile, I'm seeing on a lot of these programs and bios and professors that I want to work with that they use the term interdisciplinary. So what do I do? It's like they tell you don't use it, but we're allowed to use it. The term interdisciplinary. And I think this is a very nuanced question and a very good question, because I do think you can fall into the trap of being too broad. And that, to what this person is saying, is how it signals their lack of understanding. It does signal your lack of understanding. If you say, hey, let's give an example in the psychology field. If you want to go into psychology and then you start talking about access to healthcare and how everyone who needs access to healthcare and et cetera, that kind of puts you more in the public health space and the implications of accessibility and things like that, which are not more on the mechanisms of the fundamental psychological, behavioral components of psychology. So you do have to be cognizant of the field that you're going into and how you are pitching yourself and what you want to do and the potential impacts of your work. However, here's the nuance. You absolutely can and should collaborate with different people from different fields in an interdisciplinary way. Again, it depends on your field and what you're seeing and how the department operates, but it is very common to collaborate with people outside of your exact niche or outside of your exact department even, because the problems that we're trying to solve at the PhD level don't fit neatly in a box. So that is very common to collaborate with other groups and teams and gain those skills and expertise. The key here is noting who you're collaborating with and why, what skills you're going to gain from them and how that will benefit your work, and not pretending that you are going to be the expert in all areas of the interdisciplinary field. So going back to that psychology example, if they were researching how does access or something affect my behavior and what happens, and then my alcohol abuse or whatnot, right? You would say I would want to partner with people in the public health department or sociologists or XYZ, whoever else would bring in that expertise to help you solve those problems. But you knowing that you yourself are not a public health practitioner or administrator or things like that is key. So when you're talking about your interdisciplinary interests, it's very important to think about the core that you want to be specialized in and the expert in, and then what other tangential things are going to improve that ability for you to be successful in that work and to create the impacts that you want to have. I'm going to share my screen and kind of walk through an example. I think it might make sense. Okay, let's look at an interdisciplinary program and think about how you would approach this. So this is Emory's Department of Environmental Science and Society, so ESS, and they say it out pretty explicit that they are an interdisciplinary program, cross-training and applied natural and social sciences. Students will pursue actionable research in these three core areas, right? Climate change, environmental health and justice, sustainable ecosystem management, and biodiversity and disease ecology. And then they talk about the different approaches that you might use and things like that. So when you are applying to this program, it would make sense to identify a key area that you want to focus in, that you feel that your expertise and background and also research goals most align with. And then you absolutely need to highlight how the other areas tie in and will strengthen your work. So that's the key here, right? And so you can see the different kind of methods, and you might come in with a really strong social science background and you've done all these methods and things like that, qualitative, quantitative approaches. And you would say, hey, I really want to improve this work with geospatial analysis modeling and how those things go together. And that's the skill set that you want to really deepen and develop here and how that's going to help your work. So you can see how you can bring these things together in a way that makes sense. I don't want you to try to say that right now, if you are an expert in all these areas, amazing, but it's not necessary that you are an expert in all of these background methods and things because of the interdisciplinary nature of this work. So that's something to think about. Okay, the next myth that came up for my clients was about test scores. They were saying some people are telling them they're really important, and other people are saying they don't really matter at all. And so they're like, what is it? What do I do here? I don't want to waste time and energy, but I don't want to get rejected because I didn't do good on this test. And so here's my view, is that test scores are not the most important piece of this puzzle, right? No one is looking for that 4.0 perfect student or that somebody who got a 99th percentile on the GRE or something like that. That's not the biggest piece of the puzzle. However, if you have other parts of your application that are not as strong, test scores can be helpful. So if you have a lower GPA, or if you have been away from the field for a while, or things like that where you want to demonstrate your ability to come in and be successful. So that's where they can be helpful. I do have an antidote. So I was talking to a professor at MIT in computer science. So one of the best computer science programs in the world, obviously very competitive. And they were saying that they don't really even look at test scores or GPA until the end, until they've got a handful of people in mind. And they're like, let me just double check some stuff. And again, that's an N of one. It's not how everybody operates, but it really just goes to show that it's not the biggest piece of the puzzle most of the time for most applicants, right? Because you are all probably high achievers, pretty strong grades, things like that. So I wouldn't stress too much about test scores. Okay, the next piece of conflicting advice that people are getting is when they have to list their faculty of interest, so that might happen in the application portal itself. There's literally like a check down box where you have to check which faculty you're interested in working. They also will typically ask that in your essays, your statement of purpose, and things like that. And this is from a person who got rejected before, and they were saying when they were talking to other faculty and friends and whatnot, and they're showing them their essays and things, that based on the list of faculty that they put down, that the list looked bad, right? These people were not similar enough, and therefore you look like you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what you want to do, or you haven't done your homework, and that's why you got rejected. So again, there's never one single piece of why you got rejected. And I will say most of the time you do need a clear argument for why these faculty are the right people to work with for you to achieve your research goals. Hands down, that absolutely needs to be there. However, by the nature of faculty being different and doing different research projects, they're all not going to be identical. So when you select people, there are going to be differences between the people that you select, that you put down, but you should have a reason of why those people are going to help you be successful and why their skills are going to help you and why you want to work with them and grow and all of that. So you don't need them all to be identical, but it needs to make sense why those people are there. And again, I'm just going to get into the weeds because some programs are really bananas, and most programs you have to pick 3 to 4 people. I've seen some where they want 7 or 8. And at that point, the 7th or 8th person is not very related to your work. That's true. And that's okay. So I don't want you to freak out if the 7th person isn't doing something that I exactly want to do, and they're going to think that I'm crazy and that I don't know what I'm doing, right? So I want you to focus, be zeroed in as you can in the beginning of the people that are really closely aligned. And if you have to get to 7 or 8, so be it. I'm going to share my screen and walk you through an example. Okay, so let's look at a program where you're trying to figure out which faculty makes sense for you to talk about on your application and are a good fit to work together. So this is a interdisciplinary life science program at Northwestern. It's in biomedical. So a lot of different faculty doing a lot of different things here. And so they give you the option to look at their research and mentors and see the areas that they're focused on so you can figure out your best fit and who to work with. So let's click here and you'll see this is actually a really nice site because they let you filter and look at people by area of expertise and things like that. Not a lot of schools do that. So this is super nice to have. Okay, so, you've got different research areas. If you want to do cell bio, if you want to do genetics, if you want to do neuro. And so let's say I want to do lung, right? Like I'm really interested in that. So I would probably find people in this lung biology group, 1 or 2 that I'm most interested in working with. But then let's say I want to do really organoid work and I want to really expand on this in the lung space. So I would look for somebody doing that type of work, and this person did not show up earlier in my lung department. So it is okay to put them on here, even though they are not in that core lung group, right? Because they're still doing work that I care about and is going to help me achieve my broader research goals. And you want to be critical here. Just because they do organoid work doesn't mean they're a good fit for your area of research, right? This person is more focused on behavioral sciences, right? And that might not be what you want to do. So use this and be effective and targeted in why these people make sense to help you achieve your goals. And don't stress if they're not like perfectly carbon copies of each other, because again, that's the beauty of working with multiple people, is getting multiple skill sets and expertise, and that way you can be successful. There is so much conflicting advice out there on how to get into PhD programs and why you might get rejected or why you would get accepted. It can drive you bananas. And I really highly encourage you to get with people who can help you or figure out a game plan that makes sense for you so that way you can focus on executing instead of constantly rethinking and worrying about these small things out there. If you want to work with us, this is the work we do day in, day out with our clients. You can schedule a consultation call with us or shoot me an email. Also, if you have other conflicting advice that you're getting and you want me to expand on that in further episodes, shoot us an email. I'll put our contact info in there and happy to expand on this because I know there's a lot of conflicting advice out there, and I'm happy to work with you to make sure that you figure it out and get where you want to be. All right, have a great day.